And at this moment, the lady asked me to think about once more about my feminine nature. Maybe I have a feminine soul, and that's why I fail to be a man. Like, I can't live up to a man's responsibilities. And maybe I'm a woman. She asked me that. She said, maybe you're a woman in a man's body. And that got me quite. That was like the moment where I understood unambiguously, right? This is the satanic entity that I'm dealing with here. It's sucking me in because these demons, if they are demons, sorry, but if they are demons, they can't reach you, they can't access you. So the way they corrupt you is by being as appealing as possible. But their ultimate goal is to separate you from God. And that made me very defiant. And this feeling of self-disgust I had, the voice of my conscience, never materialized to me as an entity, but in focusing that on that and deciding that I was going to stand in opposition to these things I had seen, I had this feeling that there was like watching me, this white entity, like a white light. Didn't see it. It's just something in my thinking, in my brain told me that's the color it would have. But this entire affair was so distasteful to it, it wanted no involvement. It was watching me and waiting for me to come out. But that part of me that was attuned to it knew what it would say, knew what it wanted. And this was an entity that I called the Father. And around this time, they offered us a second cup of ayahuasca. And this is where I stopped seeing coherent things, and my memory no longer really becomes a linear recollection, but instead, literally, I wound up thrashing about on the floor for an hour and a half. Literally, I was just spasming on the floor as I had this battle in me between this father and this feminine side. And the I can only therefore really relate to you the impressions I had from it coming out of it, which was the female entity I was dealing with was sort of like an untempered woman. um, it sounds so bad, so misogynistic, but I just mean to say, like, some of the worst chaotic attributes that a woman can express are when she doesn't have family, duty, or purpose. In the same way as a man does, I suppose. A man can act like an animal, a lustful, debased animal. This feminine entity, even if it was malicious, still represented a part of the human condition, because within her realm, if we'll call it that, were aesthetics, art, chaos. And remember that chaos is itself a creative energy. I think that orderly people, if we think in terms of extremes, orderly people who give themselves to order lack creativity and are very pragmatic, rooted in the ground. They're not imaginative. But then if you think about the most creative people you know, your Van Goghs of the world, they're also deeply troubled, often depressed. Like, those are two unhealthy extremes. But I had this sensation that while it seems like the obvious answer from, like, let's say, an Abrahamic point of view is that I should reject the chaos and do what the Father says, I had this thought of my own agency, which was that I have to integrate these two parts of myself. That I didn't know what this meant, and I'm still not entirely sure, but this conclusion that kept ringing around my head was ego death. You need to kill your ego. You need to rehabilitate these two sides, bring them back together, and kill your own ego and, like, ascend above this. Become an integrated man. The reason I was spasming around was because there was a conflict being fought inside me, wherein this woman, the Father, wounded her, angered her, saddened her, but she was submissive to him. He was powerful and yet unsympathetic, callous even. So he could come in and he could make his orderly proclamation that she in turn felt wronged. And being aware of them both and the fundamental conflict, let's say, between the genders or between order and chaos, I was at the understanding that this is still a part of you have to love, this feminine part. Like, each needs the other. The man is rigid and unimaginative. The maternal side is compassionate and loving and creative. But at her worst, she enables lies. She self justification, self deception, and an assertion of false competency, which has been a problem in my life. I market myself to myself and others as being more competent than I really am, and I have a tremendous capacity for self deception. Whereas the father at his worst, yeah, it's, as I said, wrathful, lacking empathy, lacking compassion. But I felt like in a healthy person, those two still love each other. And they're different, but each needs the other. And that's something I want to work on, is the integration of the self, because, well, I'm very much drawn to order, and I'm very much drawn to a monotheistic religion that requires duty from me. If you take that to its extreme, you do become a sort of an automaton who can only drive himself too hard and drive others away, I suppose. I'm now going to read the notes that I wrote in the car. So this is about 15 minutes after finishing the trip, driving back to the town. I just wrote these as bullet points, and these were the conclusions I came to. So, first one was, order is masculine, chaos is feminine. Chaos is the absence of purpose. Purpose and competence are masculine traits. Men and women are a team. They temper each other. A man gives a woman security, a rock, and purpose. A woman moderates him and nurtures the family, reminds him of the important things, and supports him in trying times. Aesthetics are chaotic. They include art and music. The ultimate conclusion of chaos is to languish and to be purposeless. You enable yourself with lies and fictions. The ritual itself was a chaotic enterprise. One of the greatest sins you can commit is unearned accomplishment. That is, achieving through cheap means or implying that you have achieved anything significant without actually doing the work. Ayahuasca is an example of this. Anyone who is walking down a similar path to myself might well sin, and so long as they come to the right destination in the end, God will forgive you. I am convinced of that. As a final conclusion, I suppose I'll say, do I regret doing what I did, and do I recommend it to others? I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it, and I don't regret it. I think it is, in my case, it was like a weapon of last resort. I already was on a path of faith that I wanted to shove. However, if what I dealt with really were demons, if that really was a spiritual experience, then I obviously tainted myself in doing it. So let it be said that when I finished this little ritual, I felt like I had sinned. And that's why I'm not sure I can really recommend it to people. If you are genuinely spiritually bent, I don't think God's happy with you doing this. I don't know if that's forgivable, because there is the possibility that you are cavorting with literal hellspawn and using a cheat code to access something you should have to work your socks off to experience. So think long and hard before you think about doing this if you're spiritually motivated. If you're just some person who's wanting to live a life rich in experiences and self-gratification, your thinking might be different. But I'll leave it there.